Today we are talking about hundredths grid. So basically, this square right here, this is a square that's going to represent one whole. Okay, so that means that this is equal to the number 1. So what that means is, if I want to find the area of this hundredths grid, this square, since it represents one whole, it represents 1. The height is going to be 1 unit, and the base is going to be 1 unit. And so, if it's 1 by 1, what would the perimeter of this hundredths grid be? So what is the perimeter of this square if the base is 1 and the height is 1? Okay, and the perimeter would be 1, 1, 1, 1. The perimeter is 4 units. Now, the area of this would be, we know this is a square, which is also a rectangle, so the area is base times height. So the base is 1, the height is 1, the area is 1 square unit, or 1 unit squared. So that's what this represents. Another way of looking at it, so as a percentage, this 1 whole would be 100%. Right, so 100% of this whole, because if you look at all the squares here, in a hundredths grid, there are 100 squares within that one square. Okay, so in that case, what would each of these little small squares represent here? Okay, so this square right here, for example, just this one right here, would represent what? So what you should have figured is, since all of these squares, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and there's 10. So 10 by 10, there are 100 squares here. And if those 100 squares equals 1, then that means each one would represent 1/100th, 1 out of 100. Another way of representing that would be 1/100th as a decimal, and that would be like that. That is 1/100th, and that also represents that one box, and every single one of these boxes is 1/100th, right? Because if we look at all 100 of them, that would be 100 100ths, and 100 100ths would be 1 whole. Right, so that would be every single square out of all of them. Okay, so as a percent, what would that one box be? And that one right there would be 1%. So all of these numbers represent one of those squares within the hundredths grid. All right, so that is as a fraction, as a decimal, and as a percent. Okay, so that was this question here. So we're going to use this information to answer these questions, and I have myself these highlighters ready so I can start representing these portions as hundredths, and my highlighter is going to help me to see that. So our first question is, Howard went to the mall and saw a banner announcing all sporting goods 1/10 off. He saw a pair of rollerblade laces for 40 cents and wanted to find out how much he would save. So the steps that we're going to do to show this is, if you remember, we were doing the fraction multiplication when we were trying to find 1/2 of 1/3. Here's what we did. So we have 1/2, so we showed 1/2 like this. That's 1/2. And then 1/3 would be, I show 1/3 this way. I'm going to break this into 3 parts, and I'm going to shade this way. And if you remember, our answer was this one double shaded area, which was 1/6. So that showed that 1/2 times 1/3 equals 1/6. All right, so this is kind of like a little reminder of when we did this last. So if I want to show this situation in the same manner, I want to show first all sporting goods 1/10 off. So what I want to show is 1/10. Okay, and I have a hundredths grid. So 1/10, how many of these would I shade in to show 1/10? Well, I'm not sure because this is 1/100th. I'm not sure, so let's look at it as a percent. What would 1/10 be as a percent? And that's 10%. And as a decimal, that would be 0.1. Okay, so which one of us will help here? Fraction, decimal, or percent? If we look at the percent, 1% is one of those boxes. So 10% would be 10 of those boxes. So we're going to shade in 10 of them, and we're going to do it vertically. Okay, so vertically we're going to show 10%, which is also 1/10, because if you look at it, one column out of 10 columns, that's 1 out of 10, right? So this represents the sale, how much you're taking off, right? This is how much we're taking off. Now this one, on this second hundredths grid, we're going to represent the other fraction that's going on here, and that is 40 cents, and that's a fraction of $1. Okay, so since we showed the discount vertically, we're going to show horizontally the dollar amount. So this is what fraction of $1? Okay, so 40 cents is 4/10 of $1. Or what percent would that be of $1? That would be 40% of $1. And we have a decimal, we have a percent. As a fraction, what is 40% or 0.4 as a fraction? It's 4/10. Okay, so how much are we going to shade in horizontally to show that 40 cents as either 40% or as 4/10? And what we're going to do is we are going to shade it horizontally 4 rows. Okay, so we're going to show 4 rows. And now we have one ratio going this way, one ratio going that way. So now we're going to show 10% of 4/10, or 10% of 40%, or 1/10 of 4/10. And to show that fraction multiplication, remember, we're going to show both of those ratios on the same rectangle and look for the double shaded area. Okay, so let's go this way to show the 1/10, or the 10% off, and then we're going to go this way to show 4/10 of $1. And now we're looking for the double shaded area, and the double shaded area would be the part in mine that is purple. Okay, so we are showing 1/10 of 40 cents. Okay, and what is 1/10 of 40 cents then? What is that double shaded area right there? How much money is that? And you should have guessed that is 4 cents. Right? Because if this whole unit square represents $1, right? This is 40 cents, which is 40% of $1. This whole thing is $1, so those 4 right there represents 4 cents, because we have 100 cents here that would represent the dollar. Now, is that 4 cents going to be what Howard saved or what Howard spent? Okay, and if you remember, this is 10% off. So that 10%, which is 1/10, is what he saved. Right? He saved 4 cents. So now if he saved 4 cents on these rollerblade laces, how much did he pay? And he paid the rest of that 40 cents, which is 36 cents. All right, and this hundredths grid will help you to see that visual fraction multiplication. So what is that fraction multiplication? What equation can we use? One using fractions and one using decimals. So we're going to use all fractions. We would say 1/10 of 4/10. In other words, 1/10 times 4/10 is equal to our answer, which is 4/100ths. That's fractions. So now let's do the same thing using decimals. So what would that equation be here? All right, and it would be 1/10 times 4/10, which equals 4/100ths. And this is that amount. Okay, so how much money will Howard save on the laces? So then we can look at this work. We figured, well, that's the 10% off, so that's 4 cents off. He saved 4 cents. And we got that by doing, this is the 40 cents minus 4 cents, which equals 36 cents. That's the amount he paid. So this should all seem kind of familiar to you then at this point. So let's look at the next one. While in the sporting goods store, Howard found some new running shoes advertised to weigh only 70% as much as his old running shoes, and his old shoes weighed 0.8 of a kilogram. So use these hundredths grids to find the how much his new shoes weigh. All right, so we're going to start first. We're going to represent the 70%, and then we're going to represent the 0.8 kilograms, and then show what is 70% of that 0.8 kilograms. All right, so the first thing is this is 70% as much as his other shoes. So let's go ahead and look at it as a decimal. That's 0.7, and as a fraction, that is 7/10. Okay, so how much of this do we shade? And we are going to shade 7 of these. Okay, so there's the 70%. And then this is 0.8 of a kilogram. So we want to show that. So that's 0.8 of a kilogram as a fraction. That is 0.8. And as a percent, that is 80%. Okay, so how many are we going to shade in horizontally? 80% would be 80 squares. 8 out of 10 would be 8 rows out of 10 rows. So we are going to shade in 8 of them. And now we're going to superimpose them onto each other here. We're going to show 70% of 0.8 of a kilogram. And let's see what it looks like. Let's see what that gives us. There's 70%. Okay, so now this should show 70% of 0.8 of a kilogram, which is equal to, so now that would be the doubly shaded area. So we have 7 columns and 8 rows, so that's 7 by 8, which is 56 hundredths, because remember, each one of these is a hundredth. So 56 hundredths of a kilogram, that would be 70% of 8/10 of a kilogram. Okay. Now, is this how much less his shoes weigh, or would this be the weight of his new shoes? So let's look at the question. The question says that they weigh 70% as much as his old shoes. So this 70% is how much they weigh. Okay, so this is actually the weight of his new shoes. Right, and we can see that double shaded area. So let's write a decimal equation for this. So our decimal equation is, as a decimal, 7/10 times 8/10 is equal to 56 100ths. So looking at the rectangle model again, let's go down to number 3. Which multiplication problem do we see that is modeled by this generic rectangle, this area model of multiplication? All right, and we'll see that this side is 2 plus 0.3, so that is 2.3, and we're multiplying it by this one, which will give us 1.4. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure it out. Let's see what this is. So this generic rectangle, remember we have to find the area of this rectangle, the area of that rectangle, and then we have to add them all up. Okay, so let's see. The base and the height, that's 2 by 1, which is 2 units. 3/10 by 1, which is 3/10 units. 2 by 4/10, which is 8/10 of a unit, and this is 3/10 by 4/10. What is 3/10 times 4/10? And that would be 12 hundredths. All right, so adding all of those up, we have 2 plus 0.3 plus 0.8 plus 0.12. Okay, so let's line up our decimals, and that makes it a little bit easier. And we should get 3 and 22 hundredths. And that is the answer. All right, so in this last one, number 4, put decimal points in the correct locations, then complete the work. So we're multiplying 2.3, just like this, 1.4. So the reason why we're looking at the area model is sometimes people misplace decimals.